All right, welcome to another episode of WeCharg Off-Grid. And today we're going to be balancing some LiFePO4 LiFE PO4 batteries. That is lithium, iron is Fe, the P is the phosphate, O4 is a derivation of oxygen, and this is a stable chemistry. And the reason this is stable, in my opinion, is because of the iron. Instead of the ion of lithium ion, the iron is a more stable chemistry. Now, there's also an even more stable chemistry, which is called lithium titanate. And I think of it like this: iron, if you leave it out, will rust, right? Well, titanium will not rust nearly as quickly, so it's a more stable chemistry. I don't know if that's how it actually relates to the chemistry of these batteries. Although I had literally the guy who wrote the textbook, I think he's a doctor, Dr. Waterman, in high school chemistry. He would often joke about how disadvantaged we were to have the gentleman who wrote the textbook as our chemistry teacher. And I don't think it was his fault, but I just never liked chemistry that much. If you want to be a well-rounded individual, you must also learn about chemistry if you're in any kind of engineering or science field. So, I understand the basics of stoichiometry and all that stuff and balancing the equation, but at the same time, it's not my favorite subject. So you can see here we are balancing these old prismatics, one cell at a time, in order to revamp our 6-volt deep cycle RV batteries, which are in series to make 12 volts. Of course, this is supposed to be black. Don't do this at home. You could really harm yourself or others or harm damaged property. Just don't do it. But if you are watching this, noticing this, it should be black. And of course, nature or physics doesn't care what color the cord is, and so neither do I for what I'm doing here. But you can see I've set this to 3.65 volts, which might be a little high for how old these batteries are. These batteries are 5-6 years old at the minimum. These were acquired 4 or 5 years ago. They were used. They were never balanced when I got them, not really. And I just did a crude balancing, not this individual cell thing I'm doing here. And so they were used for a time before we upgraded to a bigger battery pack, essentially, with the same chemistry or a similar chemistry, the LiFePO4s. And so what I love about what I'm trying to show you at the end of the day, in addition to what I'm doing here with this balancing, which I'll get to, is just how long this chemistry can store battery power. So I have not touched this particular cell in years, literally years. It just sat for about 3 years. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this to volts, DC, let it 0. Then we'll take our probes and we'll go, we'll see what's going on. Look at that score, 3.296. 3.296, and you can see that's a 3.2 volt nominal battery with 50 amp. And so if you can imagine, I'm pretty confident that a lithium ion equivalent would have been dead by now, and most certainly a lead acid. But this LiFePO4 keeps on humming 3 years later. Some of these other ones got drained because of probably because of how I had them configured. We had our jumper going across here, and we didn't have this. And so it was just asking for a slow trickle discharge. But you can see this thing was rode hard and put up wet, stored in the garage. It was moved around quite a bit, kept in the cold, and it's still holding that charge. to accomplish the three, and even holding it at nominal, which is incredible if you think about it. I had mentioned lithium titanate, which is an even better chemistry. That, you know, I think I mentioned in this video. I did a bunch of takes on this one, but forgive me if I'm repeating that. In my theory is the iron, you know, the iron will rust, the titanium will not rust as quickly. It's a similar, probably something to do with the oxidation of those two metals, which results in a better chemistry. I would love to get my hands on some lithium titanate. The problem was, I understand it with the lithium titanate, it does have really good long-term amortization. It has the highest upfront cost, but it lasts the longest. Many more cycles can be accomplished with lithium titanate, but if you drop it, the crystal in there will shatter. So that's why I didn't consider it for what we're doing. I went with the LiFePO4, and interestingly enough, Tesla and they have followed suit with that standard some years after we got started with this standard. You know, we just kind of knew ahead of time that was going to be the case, and I can credit my own dad actually for bringing my attention to the LiFePO4 battery. Now, so 3.65, that's sort of the high end, I want to say, for one cell. If it's 3.2 nominal, you go to 3.65. I might take it down to 3.5 or 3.55 since they're so old. We're going to do a couple of them first to see how they do. You know, in order to replace two 6-volt deep cycles, two 6-volt golf cart batteries, we don't need all these. So we're going to pick the highest quality ones for the RV project. And this started at 20 watts. It's sort of an interesting thing. You take just a normal power supply. This one's 24 volts, but you can see I've only set it to 3.65 volts. So even a 12 volt or a 6 volt power supply would work for this balancing. And we started at 20 watts, and we are now at it's hovering between 7.9 and 8.2, 8.3. But anyway, it started at 20. It's going to go all the way down to 0, and that's how you know it's done. So the more charged it becomes, the less it charges per hour. But also it becomes we're utilizing the most of this battery once it's fully charged. Batteries sort of work, you know, they're only as strong as the weakest link. So I remember I used to take apart remote controls when I was a kid, put them back together with different batteries or toys or what have you, and come to find out if there was one bad battery in the whole set, all the batteries would be bad in series. I think it was in series. And of course, the laws of physics haven't really changed that much since I was a kid, as far as I know. And so we're going to balance this one out. We're going to switch. We're going to watch it go to 0. We're going to switch to the next one. Then we're going to start to compare the prismatics and put together as many as we can pack in to replace those golf cart batteries. Now, amortization, a little bit more about that. These LiFePO4s, they have thousands of cycles they can go through. And as a matter of fact, I think these ones have already gone through their 1,000+ cycles. They were pulled from that hospital and put back together, and then they sat for years, and now I'm putting them together again. So this will be at least their third life that they're being reused. Pretty cool. And so I think the amortization, which is, if you didn't know, that's essentially the long-term cost, which is ultimately what anything costs, beside its usefulness. So if you buy, really cheap batteries and you never use them, it stands to reason that you have not achieved the maximum amortization of that product. And conversely, if you use the heck out of it, you have achieved maximum amortization for that product. So ideally, actually, you want to achieve maximum use over time, and you want your cost per cycle to be minimized. And so these have a great chemistry for reducing your cost per cycle. They are superior to lithium ion. I mentioned that this would not be anywhere near 3.2 and would probably be dead in the world of lithium ion, and most certainly would be dead in the world of lead acid. So in 10 years or 15 years, or even perhaps 20 or 30 years, I've heard that there's nickel cadmium, I think it's nickel cadmium type of chemistries that have been known to last for decades. You really want to consider the long-term usage of those batteries beside the initial cost. Now, of course, lead acid, those are going to be the cheapest up front, but in the long run, those are actually going to be the most expensive. Where these are a little, lithium ions are a bit more expensive up front. They last a bit longer, and so they are actually cheaper long term than the lead acids. And these ones still yet are cheaper in the long term than the lithium ions, but up front cost quite a bit. And that lithium titanate sort of is the king of amortization, beside even the LiFePO4, as I understand it. But they have the worst upfront cost, and there is the potential for dropping them or causing those crystal inside to shatter. So I think this is a good balance between them, and so did the industry a couple years ago, that Tesla and others making the conversion over to this chemistry. So I've mentioned before, I don't think that batteries are the long-term solution to anything. I think they're a stepping stone technology, but you know, for the time being, they are superior to anything else that's around for what we're doing, which is, again, packing an RV 12-volt system, replacing it with replacing those golf cart batteries with these batteries and letting it rip. So that's what I'm doing today, or over the next several days. I would have it set up if I wanted it done fast, but I simply don't need it done quickly. I've got about 80 days to get this, to go through all 20 of these, and I really only need 8 or maybe 12 of these to build my kit for what I'm doing. So I'm just going to take my time and learn a little bit more about this chemistry or these batteries as they, on an individual cell level, as they balance. And so I'm Joseph. I'm the founder of WeCharg, without the E, WeCharg.com, and zchg.org, which is the crypto arm of all this. The crypto side of things is how we got started. So I encourage you to also check out that zchg.org. And if you like, share, and subscribe, that of course helps me tremendously. As we are a very grassroots thing, and you can see from the state of these batteries, we are not always the best funded, but we most certainly are pound for pound the best use of that funding, and we can always use your help there too. More information on how to trade the crypto ZCHG and or those electric vehicle charging technology, utilize that electric vehicle charging technology over at those websites. We'll see you next time. Take care.